afternoon, everyone. It's Em. We are going to go ahead and get started. A couple things before we start. One is the files box at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen has the presentation we're looking at now. There's another one in there that's for the non-public call that is at 2 o'clock, but you all want the public one, so you'll just download the regular one. They're also in the assessment library. This is also being recorded in case you need to refer back to it. The Q&A box at the top right is for you to type questions if you have any, and I'll get to those as we go through the webinar. We have a lot of new people on today, so I'm so excited y'all are joining. I really appreciate it. If you have questions, just let me know. All right, so we're going to go through just some highlights of the March and April assessment and accountability checklist items. So for March, this is a weird call because it's in the middle of the month. So some of these things you've already started. Some of these things you may have started in February. You will be getting grad cohort, data certification, exit code review information very soon. You'll get an individual email letting you know that that is ready for you. If you haven't yet, you want to make sure that you've planned for your school test coordinator training for test security and administration, and also making sure you are prepared as far as logistics for receiving shipments in, how you're getting those to your school test coordinators, and how you're monitoring throughout the testing window. You can also start completing test setup. That will start on March 19th for grades 3 to 8 and March 26th for high school, and that includes uploading students, dealing with transfers, verifying accommodations, creating the test sessions your students will take, printing test tickets, all of those fun things. So March 19th is for 3 to 8 and March 26th is for high school. Also, if you have new devices at any sites this year, you want to make sure you're working with your technology coordinator to ensure that Insight is installed on that device. You also want to have your technology coordinator prepared for how you all are going to support your schools throughout the testing window. So who's going to be available for questions? Is anyone going to go to any site? How is the communication between you and the tech coordinator going to work? You want to make sure you have all of those things ready before testing starts. Also, LEAP, Connect, Law 1, and ELPT are ending this week, so you want to make sure that all those materials are being returned. You're getting everything you need back from the schools. You also want to make sure any voids or testing irregularities are sent to assessment at la.gov as well. ACT is coming up too, so we are really starting into the testing season. Once your materials arrive through the 19th, you'll conduct those sessions for examinees to do that non-test information on the answer documents for paper ACT. Also on March 20th through April 18th, you'll order ACT accommodations materials for makeup testing, and you'll call ACT to do that. Also in March, you want to make sure that accommodations plans for high school testing are in place. So that means those accommodations are on the actual forms and they are in your data system that you use to make sure that they are all correct and documented. And these are some of the dates coming up for March. So March 20th, we have ACT paper testing. The 20th through 29th is for those districts doing ACT online. You have that window to complete it for Tuesdays through Thursdays. The WorkKeys accommodated window will begin on March 21st. Also, the ELPT, LEAP, Connect, and Law 1 testing, as I mentioned earlier, is ending on Friday. We still have NAEP testing going on in some schools, and then the WorkKeys window is still happening. For April, a couple things to highlight. I know that a lot of these things are repetitive because it really depends on when you are administering the test. So when you've decided to schedule your tests throughout your district and your schools, but again, you're going to need to do test security and administration training for any staff that needs it, especially if you do a separate training for your high school. So you'll need to make sure that they are trained in preparation for high school testing. You want to make sure that accommodations are in place. They've been verified by your school test coordinators, meaning they are going in the system, checking those students who have accommodations to make sure the right ones are selected. And if there are any students that need some selected because their plan was just updated, they will need to manually do that as well. You'll also start getting more materials for LEAP 2025 in April, specifically for grades 3 and 4 for the paper-based tests. We have some more testing going on for selected schools, so ICILS and TIMS, if you are one of those schools that was selected, that will begin in April and end at the end of May. Also, we have our 3 to 8 computer-based window that starts April 9th, and WorkKeys test administration window will close in April as well. We also have the ACT paper accommodated makeup window at the end of April. All right, so moving into accountability, this is the timeline for the release of the 2017-2018 school and school system level assessment results. This is not new. This is a slide that has been presented multiple times, but I wanted you all to just have it before testing starts because I know you were going to get a lot of questions. So this tells you which assessment we have coming up, where the student report timeline and location is, and where the district level results will be sent. So you as a school system should start developing a plan for how you want to communicate these results to your principals, your teachers, and your families. You have it all here in one place. ACT match, no match lists have been updated and they are in the FTP. All students that are in grade 12 must have an ACT score unless they participated in Law 1. So if you are trying to avoid an assignment of a 0 in the ACT index of the SPS, you want to make sure that you are applying accountability codes in PA Next for those students who have not had an ACT score by grade 12. And the codes are listed below. And this is a screenshot of how those codes will be entered into PA Next. That will happen March 21st through April 4th, and it is on the student detail page under Setup Students. All right, jumping into assessments. I want to review just a few things about technology. Again, all these slides are things you have seen throughout the year, but we do have some new people on, so I want to make sure that we point them in the right direction. There are things that need to happen before testing to make sure that your devices are ready. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have new devices or you have a new school site, you need to make sure that the testing site manager is installed, which is the TSM. This basically connects all of your devices in one place. It manages that. And then also Insight, which is the testing platform, needs to be installed on the devices that your students will use to take the test. So you want to make sure, again, that you are working closely with your technology coordinator to ensure that all of these things are set up. There is a check mark at the bottom of the screen that can be used to just quickly check to make sure your device is ready. When you click that check mark, there will be a page that displays that will have green or red on it. If you have all green things highlighted, that means all of your things are where they need to be. If you have any things that are not green, it will tell you why, and you'll need to work with your technology coordinator to make sure that those things are solved before testing happens. And these are the directions for that system readiness check. So again, you'll open Insight, click that check mark. The code that it asks for is always going to be 7745. Doesn't matter what device or what school you are located in. It will be 7745. So you'll definitely want to make sure you get this information to your tech coordinators. If you have any technical problems during testing, this is the protocol we use for reaching out for support. So if a student experiences a problem in the testing platform, they should notify the teacher or the TA in that room. And if that teacher or TA cannot solve the problem, they should alert their school test coordinator. If the school test coordinator cannot fix it, then they need to contact you or the technology coordinator, whatever system you have set up in your district for how they report to a district level administrator. If the problem still can't be solved, then you definitely need to reach out to DRC, and their information is below, or you can reach out to us. This is the online scheduling guidance document that is linked here. This is a great resource to use, especially if you are doing this for the first time or if you have school test coordinators that are scheduling for the first time. So it's available in the assessment library. It gives the best practices for reducing testing time. It also helps you all decide how long you want your testing window to be based on how many devices you have, the speed of the internet, and how many sessions you want to give in a day. There's also other guidance for online administration, such as not testing more than 3 sessions in a day, ensuring that extended response sessions are not given on the same day, so you should not have 2 of those on one day. And then the sessions within a content area should be given in order, so session 1, then 2, then 3. Along with this guidance, there are examples of different situations you could be in depending on your devices, and it'll tell you how many days you could test, what the challenges are, what the advantages to doing that would be, but it's all laid out in that document. One resource that you definitely want your technology coordinator have, if you have a school technology coordinator, you want to make sure that they have the technology FAQ. This is a comprehensive list of the most frequently asked questions we've received about testing and technology. This document is in the assessment library, but it will basically guide you through questions that commonly come up based on the categories listed below. So this should be in the hands of your technology coordinators at a site or a school. There's also a document called Technical Troubleshooting Tips. And this is probably better for a school test coordinator or for a teacher. So it's basically a cheat sheet of common things that may happen and how to solve for those. So if you click that link, it will bring you to every possibility of a problem and then what you should do if that happens. If you use this document, your tech coordinator has gone through the steps they need to and you're still having problems, you definitely want to reach out to DRC so they can troubleshoot with you on the phone. You'll need to make sure you have a lot of information to give them on the call so your call can be handled more quickly. So you want to make sure if there's a message that pops up on the screen, you have it written down. You want to know the student's login and password they're listed for what device they were using. So you want to make sure you have all of those things, and they are listed in this guide. That way when you call, things can be turned to a technician that can help you in a faster way. Also, as a reminder, you all have a training account. It's 777 in eDirect, and it is just for training. So you have sample students in there in order for you to help train your school test coordinators. It is only in the practice test administration, so if you're looking for it under something else, it's not there. Your sample district is 777 in the practice test administration. So this is great for you to help model for school test coordinators how to do things. If you want to demo things at a large training or help them one-on-one, you won't be seeing any student information, so you can display it for everybody. I put a reminder in here about testing homebound students. So again, this is nothing new, but I just wanted to make sure you have this again. Policy does require that homebound students are assessed. I want to make sure that you all are prepared. If you have a homebound teacher that is going to a student's home to administer this test, you would treat them just like a regular test administrator. They'll need to make sure all of their secure materials are checked in and out. They'll go to the home of the student or wherever they are and then bring everything back to you all at the end of the day. So they should follow the same rules as any other test administrator. Below are 4 options for testing homebound students through the online system. So again, you and your tech coordinator have probably already had this situation come up. You can continue to do the same thing you did last year or this year if you've had assessments. And those options are below if you need to meet with your tech coordinator. I also wanted to remind you about the student status dashboard. This shows you student testing status by the schools in your district and by administration. So you can filter in the dashboard by their status. Are they completed? Have they started? Are they finished? And then the grade, the content area, and then whatever assessment you're looking at. So grades 3 to 8, practice tests, it doesn't matter. You can see that for all assessments. There's a section in the user guide that outlines how to use this, but I wanted you all to be aware if you are monitoring or have your team helping monitor where schools are, this is the place to go. There are also a bunch of reports in eDirect for you to use for determining the status of your schools. So the online testing statistics tab is where all of that is located. So you'll have all of these reports available. So a daily cumulative student status report. So that's going to tell you all the kids in a session and the status of those students. Are they finished? Are they in progress? Have they not started? Again, these reports are really useful. I would definitely use the student status dashboard for a dynamic way to manipulate where everyone is. These reports are pulled, downloaded for you to use. And I know you know all about the online tools training, and I'm sure all of your students have used this last year and this year. But as a reminder, especially if you have new students testing or a new grade testing online, you want to make sure that they are familiar with the online tools training. The teachers are familiar with it. Whoever's administering the test should be familiar with it. And you can access the OTT in 2 ways. One is if they click Insight, the OTT is an option for them to select. The second way is the link that is on the screen, and you'll need to use it in Google Chrome. But this is a great way for them to go in, play around with all the features and tools so that they are familiar with the system. The technology readiness tool is available all year for your tech coordinators, basically to update the status of technology for your district. So bandwidth, number of devices, a lot of things just to give a comprehensive report of how each district is. The footprints that are released are a summary of each district's readiness for technology. So if you click on the link here, you'll be brought to a page where you can find your district. I'm sure your tech coordinators already reviewed this, but I wanted you all to know because this will help you plan for this year and for next school year as far as how many devices are in your district so you can plan for testing and scheduling. The system is being redesigned and it will be released in late summer. So your district can still upload information about devices, but know that they are making improvements and that'll be released later in the summer. All right, jumping into test security, just a couple reminders that any testing irregularities for ELPT, Law 1, or Leap Connect are due to assessment at la.gov by Friday. The voids should be entered directly into eDirect for Leap Connect or tied for ELPT. Also, for LEAP 2025 grades 3 to 8, those test schedules are due to assessment at la.gov by Friday. The high school schedules are due by March 23rd. And just another reminder about that online scheduling guidance that we have in the assessment library if you need to use that as a resource. Okay, let me stop just a second to see if there's any questions. We have a question about if there is an option to view the text-to-speech through the online tools training. Yes, you can select text-to-speech versions or non-text-to-speech versions, also Spanish. So if you click on the online tools training, and for whatever 3 to 8 or high school, you'll see a list of options to pick from, and those are available. The student status dashboard and the testing statistics are available to district test coordinators. If you want to give the permission to your schools there, you can do that as well, absolutely. We have a question about a temporary accommodations plan. So that temporary IAP was removed because a 504 is temporary, so you should use the 504 regular old IAP plan for a temporary incident anyway. So if you have a kid that breaks their arm and they need their answers recorded for them, you know, the day before testing starts, you fill out the 504. It is the same thing. So you should be using the IAP 504 form for anything that's temporary like that. We have a question about who can monitor, or not who can monitor, who can administer the test for LEAP 2025. Any school personnel that is trained in test security and administration can administer the test. So if you have a paraprofessional and you really want them to help administer the test, they can administer it. Whoever you need at the site, PE teacher, whatever, they can help administer it. They just need to follow the same procedures as everyone else. They need to be trained, they need to sign forms, they need to check in and check out materials. So yes, they can administer the test. We have a question about scheduling. So really how you schedule your assessments is up to you as a district test coordinator. If you want to do it for your schools, you can do that. If you want to let your schools decide how to schedule, you can do that. If you want to provide guidance to your district, as in, hey, we're going to do all ELA the first week, but I don't care when you do it, you figure it out, you can do that too. So there isn't a specific order or way to do it. You just have the flexibility within that window to administer the online assessments. Okay, we're going to jump into LEAP 2025 stuff. I just want to remind you that at the end of each testing administration, we're doing an accommodations audit to make sure that kids are getting the correct accommodations. If a student does not get the appropriate accommodation, they will have their test voided for accountability purposes. So again, you want to make sure that your school test coordinators are verifying accommodations in the system, your accommodations plans are in place, that kid has been getting that accommodation all day, every day for the whole year. All of your paperwork should be correct. So you just want to make sure that you stress that to your school test coordinators because they are going to be the ones going in the system to verify that those accommodations are correct and that they're receiving them during testing. This is a reminder about home study students. I'm not going to read all of this, but just so you know, if you have questions about a parent who homeschools their kid and they show up and they want to ask if you can test them, all of the guidelines are here. We still have the same document that is the FAQ we had last year about testing home study students or non-public school students that may come and ask. You can charge up to $35 for testing. If the kid does enroll in the district, then that testing fee should be given back to the family since they would then be a part of your district. So home study students, $35 for testing, and then there's more information here. If you have any questions about it, please reach out. This is information about testing non-public school students. So if a non-public school wants to test students who are not on scholarship, this is the information for them to know in the order form for test materials. All right, jumping into grades 3 to 8 for LEAP 2025. So we've had manuals posted. They have been delivered last Friday. Also, if you had printed accommodations for computer-based testing, those were delivered to districts on Friday as well. So the next thing that's coming up is test setup. That opens on March 19th. The window opens April 9th. The paper-based materials delivery, so that's for your 3rd and 4th grade, will happen on April 16th. The additional materials windows are located here. Keep in mind you should go through anything you've received before you order something as an additional material. So after you've checked in everything and you still need more, then you would need to order through the additional materials tab. And again, these are just dates of the windows and when materials will be picked up from the district. These are all in your test coordinator manual. The next slides are a repeat. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I wanted you to have access to them, and I wanted to highlight just a couple of important things so you hear it again. Your manuals are in eDirect. You've received them on last Friday, so I imagine you all are planning for your training for your school test coordinators, and they are planning for their TAs. So I want to make sure that I highlight some super important things. So for accommodated versions of tests, each content area, math, ELA, science, social studies, has an accommodated version that's a consumable test booklet for the students in grades 3 to 4. This version will have accommodated version written on the form, and they will be kitted or packed all together for that site or for that school. They will be in packs of 10. They will be wrapped. It will say accommodated version on it. This will be included in your initial shipment, and you can order more if you need to as additional materials. So this is going to be for kids that have read aloud or transferred answers. Students who have a Braille version or they use an interpreter to sign the test to them because they are deaf, or large print for grades 3 and 4, those materials will already come packed for them. So it will come in the Braille kit, it'll come in the Communication Assistant script kit, it'll come in the large print kit. You do not need to worry about having an accommodated version for them because it is already packed for them. But for your kids that do read aloud or transferred answers, they will need an accommodated version. It does not matter what type of read aloud they have. They could have Kurzweil, the audio files, or a human reader. They must use the accommodated version. We have specifically sent matching tests for them so that when the students play those files, they have the correct version attached to them. So these are already coming to you, labeled with accommodated version on it, according to the numbers that we have in the system for kids that need read aloud or transferred answers. Again, if you need more, order more and we will send them to you. Another thing to point out, and this is my mistake from last time, students who have a calculator accommodation need to be, they have to have a handheld calculator. Next school year is when they will have the calculator available in the non-calculator section, but they can still have a handheld calculator. But just like last year, any student with a calculator accommodation will need a handheld calculator. Also, for accommodations, all accommodations from STIR are being uploaded for you. All accommodations from SIS, with the exception of Read Aloud, are being uploaded for you. Any student that has an English learner plan or a PNP, they will need to have that manually entered by the school test coordinator. I want to say this one more time. STIR accommodations will be pulled for you. Again, the SEC needs to verify to make sure it's 100% correct. Students with a 504 plan from SIS, that will be uploaded for you. They need to verify. The one thing they will need to manually do is enter the read aloud accommodation, which type they are getting in eDirect. Student accommodations are now on test rosters this year, so school test coordinators or test administrators can easily identify who's going to have text-to-speech or Spanish on the version of their test. So it's just another way, as a quick glance for TAs to see who has what. So that is something that was changed for this year based on your feedback from last year. For grades 3 and 4, there are test read aloud labels. Those are for consumable booklets that are used to administer the read aloud accommodation. So if you have a teacher that is administering human read aloud, they need a book in front of them to read it to the kids taking the test. They will put the test read aloud label on that document. So this is for the teacher's copy. You're not putting it on anything else. The copy the teacher uses to read aloud is where the test read aloud label goes. So we are, just to be clear, we're not scoring those because the teacher just used it to read it aloud. A reminder about search and score. So you want to make sure that your STCs and your team is accounting for all of the materials and making sure that they are shipped correctly in the time frames that are in the key dates list in the manuals. DRC will charge the school system $100 to research any missing or unsubmitted tests. And if it's found and needs to be scored, which I would imagine it would be, then it's another $100, which also means you'll have a delayed score memo for that student. So it is super important that your school test coordinators get all of their materials packaged correctly, sent to you on time to make sure that everything is sent to DRC to score. One thing to note here, and again, please review these with your school test coordinators, is that monitoring of students is crucial. So making sure that your TAs are actively monitoring your schools and you as a district have a plan in place for walking around, monitoring, make sure everything is happening correctly. If you can have another person in the testing group, that would be awesome. If not, it's totally understandable, but if you can have another person in there, that will definitely help, especially with online testing. So I would stress the importance of actively monitoring tests. So they should be walking around, looking at every test the entire time during the test. They should not be sitting and grading papers or anything like that. They should be looking and scanning the entire time to make sure that everyone is where they need to be and that any questions or anything are answered. Scratch paper, every kid needs scratch paper. It doesn't matter if it's blue, green, yellow, blank, line, graph. They need scratch paper. They can use that during the assessments, and it also needs to be collected after. A reminder about the science test tickets. Remember, there's only 2 sessions of the field test. So if you're thinking you're missing a 3rd session's ticket, you're not. There are only 2 sessions. So I would just remind your STCs of this too, because they're going to be stuck in 3 sessions of test mode. So I want to make sure that they know that. With test security, again, there are test security PowerPoints in the assessment library. Under test security, if you want to use those, you can pull stuff from the slides that I've done. There's also information about monitoring in there. So we post the document that we use when we go out and monitor. It is a lengthy document, but we want you to know what we're going to look for. So you can use that if you want to with your monitors, but you do not have to. We just want you to know what we're using when we go in. If you have a testing irregularity, you need to make sure that you investigate it. And if it results in a void or lost secure material, you need to make sure that you submit that to us at LDOE. You can email that to assessment@la.gov. There's also an investigation template available if the situation arises that you need to do that. It is there for your convenience, so feel free to check that out in case that happens. Also, as a reminder, principals need to sign the pre-administration and post-administration oath of security and confidentiality statement. That's before and after testing is completed. So that's a reminder that I would flag for your school test coordinators. Something else to note would be that students tests should be voided if they are cheating. So below is just how that process would look. The TA would need to give the STC a written description of what happened. That school test coordinator needs to have a committee with people to decide if it's going to be voided, and then they will notify you as the DTC. Once you get it, you will verify the void and send it to us at assessment@la.gov. This screen is straight from the manual. It's about unlocking and invalidating test tickets. If you need help, let us know, but the directions are in the manual for what you need to do anytime that happens. But keep in mind, anytime that happens, you need to submit a testing irregularity form. So an example of this would be that a student was sick and they left during the test and they come back the next day and need to finish. That would be an example of why you may need to unlock a test session. This should be less than a handful in your district. So if you see a school that's having multiple, you might want to just call and ask how you can support them. This should not have many at all, if they even have any. For test schedules, 3 to 8 are all timed. So the only students that would get extra time are those with the accommodation of extended time. All of the times are in the manuals this year. They're also in our assessment guide, so it will prompt the TA to let them know when there's 10 minutes left and when time is up. So you want to make sure that your TAs have a stopwatch, a clock, whatever they need in order to make sure that they are timing the test correctly. They are the timer. The computer will not time them out. It is not going to lock them out. The test administrator is the timer of the test. Also, for computer-based testing, it is so important, and if you experience the frustration of this last year, and I understand, it is so important that your STCs are putting in the correct dates for when they are administering the test. So if they are administering ELA session 1 on the 9th, in the system it should say on the 9th. So you should not have sessions that are the entire window, because then you have no idea when they're really testing. If anything needs to be pulled for whatever reason, they don't know when they're testing. So the dates need to be accurate in the system. As a reminder, the paper-based materials were produced based on your October enrollment. The computer-based uploads are from your February 1 enrollment. So this is a change from last year. Last year, our online assessments were pulled from October. We have now improved that so that they are pulled from February, meaning the locations and accommodations of students will be more accurate. For large print and Braille tests, those will be sent to the district for you to give to the schools that need those. This is for large print is for 3rd and 4th grade. Braille is for all grades. If you have students in grades 3 and 4 that have read aloud, you will need to request either the Kurzweil DVD if you have Kurzweil in your district. And if you don't have Kurzweil in your district, you need to request the Human Reader DVD. That will be sent to you. There will be one for your district. You will distribute this like you have before securely to the teachers or the school test coordinators that need it. So again, you will have to go in, request which one you want, or both if you need both. If you're a Kurzweil district, which most of our districts are, you should do the Kurzweil. If you are not, you need to do the Human Reader CD. As a reminder, the shipments that you receive include overage for the schools. So you want to make sure that your STCs are not requesting more materials if they haven't finished using their overage yet. So you want to make sure that any materials that are requested to be shipped to you is because you absolutely do not have any more left in your possession. There are pickup days for your materials from UPS. These are pre-scheduled. They will arrive on the days that are in that key dates list at the beginning of the manual. There is no need to call UPS. We have already taken care of that for you. Also, one of the things that people asked for last year is a chart that says what colors equal everything. So in the manual, you'll find this too for your return label colors and your pre-identified label colors for each content area. We talked about this earlier. It is so important that you and your technology coordinator are on the same page the entire time of testing and before. So they need to make sure that they are familiar with the technology user guide, those documents that I mentioned earlier, the FAQ, the troubleshooting tips. They need to make sure devices have insight on it, they've checked them, they're all working, and that you all have a plan for how to communicate if an issue does come up. Transferring of students protocol is located here. It is also in the manual, but I just wanted to call this out again. These are important things for you all to know. So if you just have one kid that is transferring into your district, you can email DRC. If you have more than one student, there is a form that you will complete, and DRC will handle that once you submit it. All right, so moving on to high school. So tomorrow, you will be able to manage users in eDirect for high school testing this spring. The test setup for high school will begin on March 26th. Also, when you can enter TA numbers, assign them to the TAs. Materials for your high school will be delivered on April 10th. So this is going to be a very small shipment. This is if you have a student that uses Braille, if you have a student that has an interpreter that needs their interpreter script, it is very few materials. So don't expect many boxes coming, but it will be on April 10th. If you need additional materials, you can start ordering the day after, which is April 11th. The window for high school is April 23rd through May 18th. All test ticket invalidations must be sent by May 21st. Your materials will be returned on May 23rd, and if you have rescore requests, those will be due by June 15th. I'm just going to pull out a couple things as you're thinking about high school testing. I mentioned earlier the begin and end dates need to be entered for each session at the site. Remember that LEAP 2025 assessments are timed. EOC tests are not timed. The document linked here is the same document we've used all year. This is the 2017-2018 High School Assessment Frequently Asked Questions document. This is a bunch of stuff, but it also highlights that the students who are eligible to take the 4-level U.S. History EOC are kids that are graduating this year, or they are retesters that are not repeating the course. Let's say it one more time. So there's a 4-level EOC. By 4-level, I mean 4 achievement levels for EOC, so it's an older test. We also have a 5-level LEAP 2025 test that is transitioned and aligns to all of our assessments. So unset, approaching, basic, master, advanced, that's the 5 levels. Kids who take the 4-level are kids that are graduating this year, or kids who are retesting and are not retaking the course. This is just for U.S. History. Remember, this is because our U.S. History 5-level scores will be coming in the summer, and so if a kid needs to graduate, they need to know if they passed, so they need to take the 4-level test. Same thing for those retesters. But again, all of this is in that linked document. Again, this is how to unlock and invalidate test tickets. It's the same procedure for 3 to 8. You need to have a testing irregularity form if that does occur. Just like for 3 to 8, students with accommodations in SIR and SIS will be uploaded, except for those 504 plans that have read aloud. School test coordinators need to manually enter those accommodations in eDirect. Same for students who have a personal needs profile, or they have an English learner accommodations plan. That will need to be manually entered as accommodations by the school test coordinator. Also, as a reminder, for English 3, so this is an EOC, this is an older assessment, there are reading passages in sessions 2 and 3, and the questions cannot be read aloud or signed by an interpreter. So this is violating test security. So this goes back to the integration of the ELA standards and why ELA read aloud for our LEAP 2025 test is such a small population of students, because we don't have these separate reading comprehension sections anymore. English 3 is the only test right now that has separate reading comprehension sections, and that cannot be read aloud. But a student logging into the computer will not hear the computer read it aloud. So the TA shouldn't have to do anything as long as they have the test that is assigned to them with the accommodation of read aloud. It will read the correct questions for them. The reports for EOC subjects will be available 4 days after they complete the test. So student test on Monday, Friday they should have their report. Seniors that get an automatic rescore on a 4-level test will get those 8 days after the test. So there's 4 days to score. If it rescore applies, and it's another 4 days, so that's 8 days. Another just tip for those of you that are new, almost all of our districts make sure that our students that are graduating test the first day or so in the window to make sure that they get results back before graduation. So you might want to make a note of that if you're new. The reports for the 5-level LEAP 2025 assessments, except for 5-level U.S. history, will be available in the window. So they will get those results in the window, but the 4 days is just for EOC. Again, just like 3 to 8, kids need to have the scratch paper. If it's used, it needs to be destroyed. All of it should be collected. Again, here's the transfer protocol if you need to transfer students. So everything is very similar to 3 to 8. It's just high school assessments, and there's different types of assessments as far as by course area. For accountability coding, you are waiting to the very end of the window to do this. You will complete it in eDirect, and the steps to do that are located below. So again, you're doing this at the end of the window for 3 to 8, the end of the window for high school. Documentation for whatever code you're putting needs to stay with you all. So that needs to be readily available for an audit and for you to verify the accountability codes are correct. Again, same technical assistance protocol as 3 to 8. This document that's linked here is basically a screenshot of what you see on the screen. So I know a lot of people print this one pager, give it to their SCCs, and they put it on a, in their office or whatever. This is the protocol for any type of technical assistance. And again, DRC's phone number and email are located here, and our phone number and email are located here. All right, we have a few updates for assessment stuff. Some of you may have already heard about this, but our academic content team is recruiting for assessment committees that start today. So they'll happen through September, beginning in May, and they're going to review items and provide recommendations for scoring of assessments. So we have committees that will be starting very soon to help for work for the next school year. You all will have an interest survey that is linked to school system content, special education, English language learner supervisors. So the interest survey is just a way for us to gather information to help assessment content leads build these committees. We want to make sure that they meet the specifications we need for each of these committees. Any interested supervisor or teacher should complete the survey themselves, and they can complete surveys for more than one committee. So again, there will be reviewing test items, providing guidance on scoring of student responses. They'll be able to see built-in mechanisms that ensure the development of high-quality assessments and that the tests are aligned to the standards. So it's a great way for your teachers to be involved and for your district to have representation. So, I always have a present for you all. Here is your present of the month. So last year, one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got for DTCs is There's 55 million assessment guides. I just need one place to look. I can't look through all of these to find the answers. So we have made an at-a-glance document. So you can look at the most important things you need to know about assessment on one page. There's two versions. There's one by content area and one by grade band. And these are in the assessment library. So your SPCs would also benefit from this as well. But it basically lets you know the window for each assessment, the session names, how many minutes in each one, what the calculator requirements are, what versions does it come in, when are the results coming back. It's just a one-stop shop for all grades and content area. I know you all are so excited because I am also excited that I don't have to look through 55 assessment guides just to find those quick answers. So the assessment guides are absolutely wonderful and useful, but I know you all needed like a cheat sheet real fast to know. So those are up and available for you all to use. Happy St. Patrick's Day present, I guess. The next thing is the parent guides for LEAP 2025 are available. So these are used in a couple ways, mostly to attach to other documents that schools do around this time as far as like family nights and things like that. But it lets parents know what tests are being taken, when they're going to take it, anything to help them as far as resources. So there's a parent guide for that. There's also a parent guide for the practice test. So it's also helpful if they're getting any sort of results home or they're hearing about it. It's helpful for them to know what's going on. And those are in our parent assessment portal. Also as a reminder for the practice test, again, these have been available. There are do's and don'ts that are available in the guidance document. There's quick start guides for the practice test. All of the information you need to administer them or to use them instructionally is located in that practice test guidance document. And we have a library just for practice test information, and that is linked here. It's also linked from our assessment library. So again, the assessment guides are available. The item types that we have for the technology enhanced items are available in there. Also, the accessibility and accommodations manual is being updated. So last year we had two, one for high school and one for 3 to 8. We're basically merging them back this year since we are transitioning to all LEAP 2025. There's a couple tweaks we've made in there as far as like language for things, but and adding LEAP Connect to it. But that manual is being updated. There's nothing alarming as far as different accommodations or anything like that, but it will be one manual now. We do not need the separate one for EOC anymore. Also listed here are the availability timelines for all of our documents. So again, teachers, school leaders, district leaders should be using assessment guides, the practice test. There's also practice test guidance documents, there's webinars, there's frameworks, there's answer keys, there's everything that they should be using all year. Again, it's all available. Just wanted to put it in one place for you. There's also guides on the equation builders, those social studies extended response checklists, rubrics, OTT, all of that is linked here for you. As a reminder, the OTT for science is available. So again, we have a science field test this year that everyone is taking, but we want to make sure that your students are using the science OTT so they can practice with the types of items that they'll see on that assessment. And again, two ways to locate it. One is an Insight, one is to the web link that is linked on the screen. There are also tutorials in eDirect for teachers to use, to show students, or for them to just get a glimpse of how to use each tool. But they're really short, like 10 seconds, 12-second clips of how to use the tools. All right, for ACT and WorkKeys, these slides basically have all the resources you need and the dates that you need. So ACT is coming up next week. Definitely want to make sure that you have another place to reference all of these state testing resources. They are all linked here. The schedule, any user guides, the student data upload template, all of those things are linked here for you, along with the customer service phone numbers if you need to reach out. For ACT online, so we have districts that are participating in ACT online. This slide is for you. If you're not doing online, you don't need to worry about this slide. This links you to the information you need as far as the readiness for the online assessments, making sure that the devices are ready and preparing for the online assessment. Again, the information for customer service is linked here as well. The ACT important dates list, again, this has been in our decks every month so far, so none of this is new, just another reminder. So the schedule of events is available. The manuals for ACT and WorkKeys are available. Today is when tech coordinators are going to validate the configuration and lock down devices for ACT online. Tomorrow is the deadline to add students and update their information in PA Next. It's also the deadline to place additional orders for ACT and WorkKeys accommodation materials. The 16th, which is Friday, is the deadline to request ACT approved accommodations for the ACT. That's in TAA. And then now through March 19th, you're conducting those sessions of the non-test information for your paper testers. And then through the 20th, you need to make sure that the room supervisors and proctors are trained and ready to roll for next week. Also, the FedEx pre-scheduled pickup for ACT, test booklets, answer documents, TA forms from the accommodations test window is April 5th. There's a bunch of other dates listed here, but I definitely wanted to get you to the March one. So there are things that need to take place. You want to make sure, again, you're working with your tech coordinator if you're doing online. Your assessment team has a protocol in place to make sure that they reach out when needed. But please feel free to call us or ACT if you have any questions about any of this. All right, ELPT is closing Friday. Any large print or braille test responses need to be entered in the data entry interface by Friday. Remember, those oaths also need to be completed. If you have any questions, let us or AIR know for ELPT. The next couple of slides just show you how to accountability code if needed. Again, these slides are not new, just reminders for you all. Again, another screenshot of how to do accountability codes, so feel free to reference this if needed. For returning materials, you all are responsible for arranging those materials pickup with FedEx. There is not a pre-scheduled pickup day. All the information about packing materials and how to return them are in the linked document. The materials must be picked up by the 23rd. Again, the information on how to initiate a return is here. It's also in the directions that you received from AIR. Lead Connect and Law 1 is also ending on Friday. Last day to order materials is Thursday. If you have an emergency and need to test someone on Friday, again, this is a pre-scheduled pickup on March 19th. Make sure all voids are completed. Make sure oaths are signed. Any issues you have, let us know. Again, you're going to accountability code at the end of the window, which is now. So please start initiating that process with your team. For Leap 360, we do have one quick update. So you'll notice a change in the options that are listed in the drop-down. So we changed that to be more clean-looking and organized. So the test session summary report and the test session response maps will be listed by subject and grade span. So we have a need for this from the district level because you were seeing everything. So we chunked them into the categories people kept asking for. So nothing with the report itself is actually changing. It's just the drop down and how it's organized. Again, the MOU is due on July 7th for the 18-19 school year. For Leap 360, it is going to be the same conditions as it was this year, which is at no cost. That needs to be submitted to assessment at la.gov. If you have any questions, let us know. If you are attending the collaborations, we'll review some of the improvements for 2018-19, but we have put them into 5 priority areas: data management, educator scoring, reporting, content, and EAGLE. So those areas are where we're focusing on after we've received thousands of pieces of feedback on this. That is how we have prioritized the improvements for 1819. If you are a new DTC, a new backup DTC, new accountability contact, or new backup accountability contact, or you changed your secure shipping address, we need to make sure we have that on file, so please fill out the form and send it to assessment@la.gov. And you can do this anytime throughout the year. If you change your secure shipping address, I would do that today and send it to us so we can make sure you're going to get your stuff at the right location. As always, newsletters, weekly calls, the monthly calls, our email and hotline are available for you at any time. We also have this one-pager again for all of our customer service phone numbers for each assessment if you need to reference that. Also keep in mind Teacher Leader Summit is coming up at the end of May. So if you are trying to plan for who's going to attend, know that there will be a Leap 360 session every day. So you will see me every day for every session. But also there's a ton of stuff that's being presented, so you definitely want to check out the overview document to make sure that you're sending the right people. And there's just some next steps here. If you have any questions, please let us know. You can email assessment@la.gov. Our April call is the 17th of April, so it's in the middle of the month again. So happy testing with ACT next week, closing out Lead Connect Law 1 and ELPT Friday, and getting ready for 3 to 8 online on April 9th. Have a great day. I'm going to stay on to answer some questions that have been sent in, but I think I've gotten to most of them as I talk through. If you are joining at the 2 o'clock time right now for our non-public district test coordinator monthly call, we're going to start in just a second. I'm going to change the PowerPoint, but right now if you want to, you can start downloading the non-public monthly call from the files box at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. All right, the PowerPoint is almost finished loading. Again, this is for our non-public district test coordinators. It's also located at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you want to download, and it is in the assessment library. So if you want to download it there, you can do that too. The Q&A box at the top right is for you if you have questions throughout the presentation. Hopefully I'll get to those throughout, but if not, I can type messages to you or you can email me and we'll definitely help you. As we're waiting for this to load, we do have a question I wanted to answer. They were asking about how do you figure out which TA number goes with the test administrator. It doesn't matter. You pick the TA numbers you want. You can say, in alphabetical order, you list them and they get numbers 101, 102, 103, 104. It is totally up to the site. There is not a structure into how to do that. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, welcome. Thank you for joining. I see quite a few new DTCs that I've talked to recently joining, so I am so excited you are here. We're going to run through quite a few things, so if you want to take notes, you can, but know that this is being recorded in case you need to refer back to it. The first thing we're going to do is go through our month-by-month checklist. So those of you that are new, I believe I have sent this document to you, but it is a document that outlines everything you need to do by month for every test. It is your go-to document for sure, but I'm going to highlight just a few things that are coming up for March and in April. So really for March and April, the most important things surrounding testing is ensuring that all personnel that are helping with testing are trained in test security and the administration of the test. So teachers that are administering it, anyone who is helping, your backup coordinator, anyone who's proctoring, anyone that's monitoring, anything like that needs to be trained in test security administration, and I'll show you the link to get to some of those resources today. But that is going to be your main focus for the next month or so, in addition to scheduling your assessment. So with our online window, you have flexibility to test whenever you want, and so you want to start thinking about which schools are going to test when. Do you want to give them a schedule? Do you want it to be up to them? So you want to start planning when tests are going to be taken, and then when Test Setup opens in eDirect, which is our website that houses all things assessment, you'll enter those schedules in the system and say, I want this test on this day for these kids, this test on this day for these kids. So you'll be able to basically transfer your schedule into the system, but you can absolutely start doing that now. You received some materials already, so the manuals for our grades 3 to 8, but you will also start receiving the rest of your materials in the next month. So for our 3rd and 4th grade paper testers, you will receive boxes of tests. For 5 and up, or for 3 and 4 that are online, the only materials you will really receive is if you have a kid that needs a Braille book, or a kid who is deaf and has an interpreter and they need to sign the test to them. We have an interpreter document that they'll use. And then for grades 3 and 4, you'll have your regular paper-based materials, but you'll also have large print versions if you have kids that need large print. So you have a variety of materials that would be coming to you. So be on the lookout for those, and I'll tell you the dates in a few slides so you'll know when to be ready. Also, just preparing for 3 to 8, but also for high school, you want to make sure that accommodations are in place. So students' accommodations need to be on the plan that they have, whether it's an IEP, IAP, personal needs profile, English learner accommodations plan, has to be on there 30 days before the test. Also keep in mind those accommodations should be used all day, every day by those kids. So when they get to the test, this is nothing new. You cannot have an accommodation just for the test. You want to make sure that all your documentation for those accommodations is correct. So it's in the data system you use, it's on the plan, your school test coordinator is verifying in an eDirect. All of those things are organized and ready to roll for when testing comes around. Not going to read all of the dates on here, but know that you can look at the checklist or these slides If you have students taking ACT, so those are our high school 11th grade students or students who have not tested and they're in 12th grade, ACT is next week. It's on March 20th. If you are a school that's doing ACT online, you have that window. It's the 20th to the 29th. And our ELPT and Leap Connect or Allow 1 test, if that applies to you, if you have students taking that, ends this Friday. For April, like I mentioned before, you're making sure everyone is trained and ready to roll for assessment. So test security training, test administration training, logistics are set up, procedures are in place at the site for how they want to distribute materials, collect materials, monitor classrooms, all of those things definitely need to continue happening in April. You'll also start, like I said earlier, getting some of those materials for testing as well. So they'll be shipped to the secure address that you put on your contact update form. And our grades 3 to 8 testing starts April 9th for online. And remember that paper-based is that first week in May. All right, jumping to accountability. This is a slide that is not new. We've used it, I don't know, probably every month on a call, but I wanted you all to have this again because testing is coming up and people are going to be asking these questions. So it's a one-stop shop for where and when results are going to be released for all of our assessments. You also want to be thinking about how am I as a school or a district going to communicate these results to parents. So you want to be thinking about creating a plan for how to deliver results. I'll show you some links to some parent guides that we have later on in the presentation. You definitely want to be thinking about that. But in short, May is when our ELPT, Law 1 and Leap Connect results will be released. If you're testing high school students on tests other than 5-level U.S. history, you'll get those scores in the window. For our 3 to 8 testing, those results will be available in the summer. This next slide is if you are administering the ACT and you need to accountability code students, so the directions are here. I know this does not apply to the majority of you, but I would just want to make sure that you have a place to go in case you need this. So again, if you have students that did not test, you'll need to put a code in, basically documenting why they did not test, and these are the directions for how to do that here, and a screenshot in case you need to apply an accountability code. All right, let's jump into the administration of the assessment. So one thing that you can do now, and you did this last year, and you may think, why do I need to do this again? Some of it you don't need to do again because you've done it last year or you've been doing it all year anyway. But for those schools that have new devices or a new coordinator or a new technology coordinator, just a reminder, your technology coordinator and you need to be very tight on communication before and during testing. It is essential to a successful rollout of assessments at your site. Your technology coordinator needs to ensure that any devices that students are going to be using for testing have Insight, which is the testing platform, installed on it. And it's just going to be an icon on the desktop or on their screen for them to click. So any devices kids use needs to have that. The other thing is all those devices will basically connect to a manager that will be on a separate computer, and it's called the Testing Site Manager. And it links all the computers in that school to one place so you can monitor and see if there's issues and things like that. So the TSM, the Testing Site Manager, also needs to be installed at a site. So your technology coordinator, if they need help, please reach out. There is a technology user guide. It is one document that they can refer to on how to do all of these things to get ready. But again, if you have Insight already installed on your computer, you don't need to do it again. If you have kids who've been using Leap 360 or tested in the fall this year, they don't need to do it again. It should be fine. One thing that's an easy thing to do that is really something the kids could do, or if one person on your team or your technology coordinator wants to go in and check, they could check to make sure devices are ready by doing this. Click on Insight, then click on the check mark on the screen and type the code 7745. Once you type that code in, there's going to be a screen that pops up, and it should show all green check marks. Yes, 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 it is good to go. If it does not, it will tell you what the problem is so that your technology coordinator can fix it. So this is a super quick, 2 seconds. Click the check mark 7745, and it will display that your device is configured correctly and everything's working. So that's another thing that they could do before testing instead of waiting till the last minute. One thing that, especially if you're new, that I want to voice over is this screen that you see now is actually a one-page PDF that a lot of our test coordinators give to their school test coordinators or their TAs. It's just one page. But this is the protocol we use for technical assistance. So a student encounters a problem. The TA should troubleshoot. The TA will most likely know how to solve the problem because it's probably the kid typed in the wrong password or they clicked on the wrong thing. If the TA cannot solve the problem, they should go to their school test coordinator. Their school test coordinator should troubleshoot. If the school test coordinator still can't figure it out, they need to call you as the district test coordinator or your district technology coordinator. You all, I'm going to show you a couple of different resources to use in a minute, but you all will try to troubleshoot to see what's going on. If then still it is not fixed, definitely reach out to DRC. Their information is listed on the screen, or you can call us or email us. We are more than happy to help. But if it is a technical issue, you should definitely reach out to DRC. They will have technicians on the phone helping you troubleshoot. But this is the protocol to use. So you might want to save this, print it, give it to your school test coordinators for them to refer to. There's also a document that's called Online Scheduling Guidance. So this is not new. This document is a resource that shares best practices for reducing testing time. It also gives you a chart that helps you decide how long you want to test. So based on the number of devices you have, the speed of your internet, the number of sessions you want to give in a day, it'll tell you how many days it will take, the challenges and advantages of each of those. So if you are a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 device-to-student ratio, it will tell you what that will look like as far as scheduling in there. So remember, you should be 1-to-3 or 1-to-2 or 1-to-1. So when you look at that chart, you'll just pick that column where you are, and it'll tell you how many sessions you would have to schedule in a day and, you know, how that's helpful or what things you would need to think about. It also gives you the guidelines for how to schedule. So the 3 most important things as far as scheduling, and really the rest is left up to you all, is cannot test more than 3 sessions a day. You cannot have more than 1 extended response session on a day. So you don't want kids to do 2 long writing sessions on a day. Those need to be separate. The other thing is that the sessions need to be in order. So session 1, then session 2, then session 3. And again, all of this is in the guidance document that's linked. All right, so here is one of the documents I was telling you about earlier for technology help. So you, and definitely your technology coordinator, needs to have this document. This is a comprehensive list of the frequently asked questions we've received about technology in the categories that are listed on the screen. The technology user guide is also linked here. So there's actually 2 things on this slide. The FAQ document, and it will go through commonly asked questions and how to troubleshoot it. And there's a technology user guide that's linked here as well. So again, if your school test coordinator should be, they may not use this guide, but your technology coordinator for sure should go through this before they contact us or DRC to make sure that they've troubleshooted the problem. Another document is technical troubleshooting tips. This document could be used by teachers. It is short and sweet. It basically says these are the top 10 things that kids say, and this is how to fix it. So for example, the problem is the student can't log into the test. The most common thing is that the kid is typing the wrong password, or they're typing the password like they're missing a letter or something, or they clicked the wrong test to go in. So instead of clicking under 3 to 8, they might have clicked the high school one. So that's something that should be easily fixed in the moment by the TA. And there are other things listed on here as well. But your tech person, your school test coordinator, and your TAs should definitely see this technical troubleshooting tip. Another thing, just as a reminder, you all have a sample school site code 777 that is in eDirect. This is a training account for you to use if you need to demo, model, train your school test coordinators. So it has sample kids in it too. So instead of you pulling up your super duper ultimate access of kids, you can go into a training account that has fake kids in it, so you're not displaying information, and you can go through and demonstrate how to do certain things. This slide is just another reminder, again, nothing new as far as testing homebound students, but if you do have homebound students, there are 4 options that are listed below. So if you've done this before, you can use the same thing you've done before. You don't need to change anything, but this is just a reference for you. So homebound students are required to be tested. So you would treat the test administrator like you would treat a test administrator for someone administering the test in a school. So they'll have to check out their secure materials. The only difference is instead of them going to a school, they're going to a home or a facility where they're being tested. One thing that will be super helpful for you all and your school test coordinators is the student status dashboard. This is in eDirect, and it basically gives you a view into where all your schools are and how they're testing, who's completed, who's not, who's in progress. It'll let you see it for any administration and across different sites if you have more than one site. So I would definitely be referring to this or using this or your team looking at this as testing is happening for your district. Also, there are reports within eDirect under the Testing Statistics tab, and it gives you quite a few options for things you might want to use just to get a feel for how your districts or your schools are doing. So there's a report called the Daily Cumulative Student Status Report, and it shows all the kids in a test session and where they are. Did they finish, did they not, are they in progress? And these are things you would download to view. The dashboard is interactive. That's the biggest difference. But the testing statistic reports give you a bunch of stuff. So definitely browse through this just to check it out, and it may be things that you want to use with your team as testing is happening. Also, just as a reminder, we still have our online tools training. This can be accessed in 2 ways, whether it's through Insight or the link here. Students and teachers should be using this to become familiar with the tools and features in the system. If they've already done this and they've been using Leap 360 all year, they don't really need to do the online tools training because they're already familiar with the system. But for any new testers, if you have 3rd and 4th grade who are testing online for the first time, or if you have students that are not using Leap 360 and have never used this platform, they definitely need to get on it just to get a feel for it. Teachers and test administrators should definitely know how everything works in the system because they will be administering the test. And if a student has a question, they need to be able to answer it. There's also tutorials on each of the tools in eDirect. So if you go into eDirect under General Information, there's a tab called Tutorials, and it's basically 10-second, 30-second little videos of how to use the highlighter. There's one on the calculator. There's one on the sticky notes. They're all separated for you to get a quick video of how to use it. All right, jumping into test security, just as a reminder for those of you that did ELPT and Leap Connect, any testing irregularities need to be sent to assessment@la.gov by Friday. If you have any voids, you need to make sure you enter them in the system as well. For test schedules, your grades 3 to 8 test schedules are due Friday to assessment@la.gov. Your high school test schedules are due by March 23rd. This should not be anything that you recreate for us to see. This should be whatever you have that you make for your site. You can send us the exact thing. There is not a format. We just need to have every school's testing schedule. So however you send it to us is fine. Also, another reminder to the online scheduling guidance is linked here as well if you need support. For LEAP 2025, just a reminder, we do accommodations audit to make sure kids are getting the right accommodations. So you want to make sure all of those things are in your accommodations plans and in eDirect and your data management system. All of that is correct and organized. If a student doesn't get the correct accommodations or gets accommodations they're not supposed to have, the test will be voided for accountability. A reminder for home study students, the information is listed here. This should not apply to many of you, but it is linked here just in case. But what will apply to you all is our non-public school participation form. So there's an FAQ document and there's a participation form that will help you for testing. The FAQ document is questions about non-public school students testing. The participation form is available to fill out to order tests for non-public students that are not on scholarship. So if you are a private school and you want to test your kids, you can test them. That is the order form for you to fill out. If you are a private school and you have some scholarship kids but you want to test your other kids, you can do that. You just need to complete the order form and order those assessments. So some things to note is that kids who have a scholarship or TDR are going to test at whatever site they are in. They're not going back to a public district. You're testing them on site at that school. You will administer the test in the same way as everyone else is. So your people need to be trained. You need to have logistics set up on how to do assessments. Everything will be the same as far as setup and preparation and organization. You just happen to be testing kids that are at a non-public site. LSID, Louisiana Secure ID, for non-public, non-scholarship students is their social with a leading 0. So 0, 42462, whatever. So it's going to start with a 0. That is how their ID will be recognized in the system if you have a non-public, non-scholarship student. All right, so for grades 3 to 8, these next slides are a repeat from previous calls. So this is not new information, but I am going to just pull out some highlights just to remind you as testing is coming up in a few weeks. These are the key dates. Manuals have been posted over a month ago. You also received them last Friday. Also, any printed accommodated materials for the computer-based tests were delivered Friday as well. So next Monday, test setup will open. That means you can start creating test sessions, adding kids, verifying accommodations, getting test tickets ready. All of those things can be done starting Monday. Now, you do not need to do it on Monday. It just opens on Monday, and you have until whenever you test the kids to do it. So if you're not testing the kids the last day in the window, I mean, you have a month and a half to, put in your stuff to get the test set up. But this is definitely an easy thing to check off your list if you're wanting to get ahead of the game. You can start planning for this now and then input the schedules for those kids in the system when it becomes available. The computer-based window starts the 9th and ends May 4th. Also, your paper-based material, so this is for your 3rd and 4th graders that are taking on paper, that will be a separate delivery. So that will come to you in boxes on the 16th of April. If you need additional materials, so that means you received all your materials and they send you overage and you've used it all and you still need more, you will order it in the additional materials tab in eDirect. So let's say you got 10 3rd grade paper-based tests, but you just had 5 kids enrolled. You're going to need 5 more tests, and so you just need to order them in the additional materials tab, and we will send those to you. So you'll just need to indicate how many you need. If you have students that are on TDR, they are taking math and ELA only. Your scholarship kids are taking all subjects. ELA, Math, Science, Social Studies. These are also the dates here for the pickups. So we have scheduled all those pickups for you. You just need to make sure that your materials are packaged up and ready. So those dates are listed here. They're also in the manual. For test setup, like I mentioned earlier, you can start that next Monday, and these are the things that you'll be able to do in test setup. If you need help on how to do it, the eDirect user guide has step-by-step directions with screenshots to help you walk through how to do any of these things. And as always, if you still need help, please call us or call DRC. We are more than happy to help. All right, so I pulled some things that I thought were the most important things to note for you all as far as the information in the manual. So remember, there are two types of manuals. There's a test coordinator manual, and there's a test administrator manual. The test coordinator manual is for you. The test administrator manual, you should still read, but it is specifically for the person in the room administering the test. It gives that step-by-step script of what to say. In the manuals, there's a ton of information, but I have a couple things I wanted to highlight. The first thing is, if you have students that take the test that has read aloud or that has transferred answers. So let me say it one more time. If you have a kid that has read aloud on a test or transferred answers as an accommodation, they have to use the accommodated version of the test. We are going to send you accommodated version tests that are labeled accommodated version, and they will be wrapped up together for you to have. The reason why we do this is because we are sending you the test that is going to match the read aloud based on the kids you have. So you're going to either order a Kurzweil CD, which is a text-to-speech program that the majority of our districts use. So if you already have that, you're going to order a Kurzweil CD to get the read aloud. If you don't have Kurzweil, that's fine. We have another CD that's called the recorded voice file. So you're going to order one of those two CDs. In order to ensure that the CD that you get matches the test booklet the kids get, we have planned that for you. So we're going to send you a CD with the test being read aloud so you can play it on a CD player or computer or whatever, and we're going to send you the test that matches what is being read. Those students must use an accommodated version test. If they don't, it's not going to match. So that means your kids are going to be reading something and the recording is going to be reading a different question. We have prepared to make sure that these match. So again, if you have transferred answers for a student or if you have read aloud for a student, they absolutely 100% have to use the accommodated version. If you have a student with a calculator accommodation, they need to be provided a handheld calculator. So there are non-calculator sessions of the test, and if they have a calculator accommodation, they can use it. They just need to be given a handheld calculator. For your students that have a 504 plan, an IAP, those accommodations, with the exception of read aloud, will be pulled into eDirect. Same with SIR, if you have students with an IEP. Those will be pulled for you. The one thing that you will need to manually enter are kids with a 504 plan that have read aloud. You will need to have that school test coordinator click the box in eDirect. All the rest of the accommodations will be pulled for you. In addition to that, it is the school test coordinator's job to review every kid's accommodation in the system to verify that it is correct. I cannot stress how important that is. It is very important. If that student receives a test without that accommodation, that's a problem, and you don't want to have the test voided because the kid didn't get the correct accommodation. So that's a really great thing to stress to your school test coordinators, that when they're in eDirect, they need to go and check for sure. I know Johnny has read aloud and extended time, so I pull up Johnny. He has read aloud and extended time. Good. to definitely make sure it becomes a habit for them. One thing that's new this year is that our test rosters will have accommodations on it. So that way your STCs and your test coordinators will know which kids should have read aloud or Spanish. Those are the two that impact the tests that you'll see on the screen. And so the rosters have that information this year. Another thing is for grades 3 and 4, paper-based tests, you are going to get labels that say test read aloud. That label is to put on the test that the teacher uses to read aloud. You're going to put that label on the test, and it will not be scored. That is your version of test read aloud. If you have a kid that has human read aloud, you would need to put that label on that test. Search and score is a reminder about making sure that your tests are submitted back to DRC correctly. So you need to make sure that your school test coordinators and your team have a really tight process for how to distribute and collect materials, that it's packaged correctly, they follow the directions, and it all ships back on time. If you need DRC to search for a missing item, that's $100. And if you want them to score it, which I'd imagine you want it scored, it's another $100. This also means your kid is going to get a delayed score memo, so it will not come out with everyone else. So you really want to stress the importance of following those directions on the packing up of the materials and submitting it on time. Students who are non-public or TDR will require payment to participate in the testing, and that order form that I mentioned earlier is listed here, and the FAQ is listed here as well. So this is students on TDR, and then your non-public, non-scholarship kids. It's $50 per content. So if you want to test ELA, math, and social studies, that's $150 per child. This includes all test administration, the test itself, scoring, the reports. It includes everything. One thing you want to make sure that as you train your school test coordinators or your test administrators is you stress the importance of monitoring and what that looks like. So a TA should be actively monitoring in that room, meaning she is walking around, scanning, looking at everyone, making sure they're doing the right thing, they're on the right test, they're not doing anything that would be suspicious for any reason. They should be looking at all times and be able to see every kid what they're doing. This does not mean they're sitting in the back, grading papers, reading the newspaper, leaving the room, whatever. It is absolutely that test administrator's responsibility to be in there the entire time and actively monitoring that assessment for all of those kids. Scratch paper needs to be provided for the kids. It doesn't matter what kind. It could be line, grass, purple, green, gold. It doesn't matter, but they need to have scratch paper. It needs to be collected at the end of the session as well, and any session scratch paper that has writing on it needs to be destroyed. Accountability coding will happen at the end of the window, so that's for students who did not test. You'll need to provide a code for why they didn't test, and that you'll save to the very end of the window. One thing I want to flag is, remember, you're getting a test ticket for each session. So if ELA has 3 sessions, that child will get a test ticket for session 1, session 2, and session 3. Science is different this year. If your kids are scholarship students, they are taking the science field test. There are only 2 sessions in the science field test, so you're not going to be missing a 3rd ticket. There's just 2. The science field test is for our scholarship kids. They will only have 2 test tickets. For test security, in the assessment library, there's a test security section. It has a bunch of stuff in it. One thing that's in there is a test security PowerPoint that is for you to use to do test security training as you wish. Keep in mind, that is the bare minimum LDOE test security guidelines. You as the district have your own test security policy. So everyone does this differently. You are most likely going to have more slides to add because you're going to go over the procedures you want in place, the timelines you want things done, how you want things done to make sure that everything is correct. So that's definitely a good foundation for you if you choose to use the test security slides in the library. Also, there is a monitoring form that we post in there. You do not have to use that form, but that is the form that we use when we monitor. So we want to make sure that you know what we're looking for. And if you choose to have your monitoring team at a district level or school level use it, you can absolutely use that. You as a district test coordinator have to investigate any testing irregularities. If you have a testing irregularity that results in a void or material that is lost, the investigation has to be submitted to us at assessment@la.gov. There is an investigation template in that test security section in the assessment library I was just talking to you about, so you can use that to do your investigation. Also, as a reminder, secure materials must never ever be left in open areas or unsupervised. So it is very, very important that you and your school test coordinators develop a tight plan for how things are going to be secure, how people are going to be trained, when people are going to get materials, monitoring of all of that. Your principals are also required to sign those pre and post oath of security and confidentiality statements. So you might want to flag that for your principals. There's a line for them they need to sign. Also, tests are going to be voided if there's any instance of cheating. So if you have a TA that witnessed someone cheating, they need to write it up and give it to the school test coordinator. The school test coordinator needs to meet with people to decide, are we going to void this? Was this cheating? If the answer is yes, that school test coordinator needs to notify you as the district test coordinator. You'll get all that documentation, and you as the DTC will verify that the void needs to happen. You will void it, and you will send that information to us at assessment@la.gov. Unlocking and invalidating test tickets have some procedures, and they are on this slide, but they are straight from the manual. So in the event you need to unlock or invalidate a test ticket, invalidate meaning void, then you'll need to use these directions to do that. If you do need to do this, remember you need to fill out a testing irregularity form. As far as test schedules, all grades 3 to 8 and high school LEAP 2025 are timed. So there's no additional time given to students unless they have the extended time accommodation. Each test session needs to be administered and completed on the day it's scheduled. So if you're taking it on Monday, it needs to be given on Monday, and it's over on Monday. For your paper-based testers, this is 3rd and 4th grade paper-based, there's makeup test sessions in the schedule, which are the 2 days after that week, so you need to make sure makeup testing happens then. For online makeup testing, you have the whole window to do that. There is not a separate makeup testing window. These are some more reminders about materials and the boxes that you'll receive. So the boxes that you get the materials in are the same boxes you're going to use to return materials, to make sure your school test coordinators don't throw those away. Also, if you have students in grades 3 and 4 that have the large print version accommodation, or students that have a Braille test, those will be mailed to you in a shipment and will be kitted with all the materials that they need for it. UPS is already scheduled to come and get all of your stuff, so you don't need to worry about calling them or scheduling anything. We have handled all of that for you, and we have the dates and those key dates on the slides before this and in the manual. This is an improvement that we had from last year. People were asking if there could be a chart that says what each label code color means and what it's for. So this is, again, straight from the manual, but it lets you know which labels or what colors and why they're there. And it's, for shipping and returning of materials and for content area colors for those pre-identified labels. Some other reminders, which I mentioned earlier about how close you and your technology coordinator need to be, but again, these are things that they should be doing: attending monthly technology webinars, becoming familiar with that technology user guide, installing the secure browser, making sure everything is configured, and that you all have a plan for support during testing. If you need to transfer students, the directions are here. They're also in the manual. But the short answer is, if you have one kid, call DRC, they'll handle it. If you have more than one kid, you'll fill out a form and they will handle all of your transfers for you. You just need to send in the form. For high school, the key dates are listed here. Tomorrow you'll be able to manage users in the system, so add people, assign them to the administration for high school. Test setup is on the 26th. That's when you can start creating test sessions, verifying accommodations, uploading kids, all of those things. That is on the 26th. That is for high school. Again, the other dates are listed here, but the window for testing is April 23rd through May 18th. A lot of the things that are on the next slides are pretty much identical to 3 to 8 because it is the same system and same process. So just as a reminder, you'll put the test session begin and end dates in the system so that we and you know when everyone is testing. One thing to keep in mind, and the link for the 2017-18 high school assessment FAQ is linked here. This is a document we've been using all year, but for U.S. history, we have 2 versions of this test. We have a 4 achievement level EOC test for U.S. history, and we also have a 5 achievement level U.S. history test that's LEAP 2025. So remember, we transitioned to LEAP 2025. Those are our new assessments. The EOC is an old version of the test. The kids that need to take the old version, the 4-level test, need to take this if they are graduating this year or if they are retesting and they're not in the course, so they're not repeating the class. The reason why these students need to take the 4-level is because they will need their results before they graduate in order to know if they're going to graduate. The 5-level U.S. history results will be released this summer, and that's not in time for them. So the only kids that take the 4-level test are kids who are graduating this year or they're retesting and not in the course. And again, that is in this document that's linked here. Again, some of these slides are repeats about how to invalidate unlocked test tickets, about how to enter accommodations, about reviewing accommodations in the system. One thing, since we're talking about old tests, English 3 is an old test. We are phasing English 3 out, so we do have some students that still need to take it. But English 3 is based on a different set of ELA standards as far as the integration. So when we switched to new standards years ago, our ELA standards are integrated, right? We don't have a separate spelling, a separate grammar, a separate reading comprehension, just like we don't have those separate sections when we teach or when we assess. So we don't have a test that says go to the spelling section. You know, that's very old school stuff. We don't have that anymore. But the one test that has English 3, one test is still English 3, and it does have separate reading comprehension sections. Those will not be read aloud when the student goes into the test if they have tests read aloud as an accommodation. So your TAs don't need to worry about, oh my gosh, what do I do because it's English 3 and it's weird and there's some sections that you can and can't read aloud. They don't have to worry about anything. The computer will read what is correct and not read what they're not supposed to read. Reports for EOC subjects will be available within 4 days after they take the test. The LEAP 2025 results will be delivered in the window as well. The only test results that will not be coming back in the window is the U.S. History 5-level test that will be in the summer. Again, you want to accountability code students at the end of the window. So kids who didn't test, they need to have a code entered for why they didn't test. It could be they transferred to another school, they dropped, whatever. It needs to be entered in the system. And then remember, this is all in eDirect. Again, this is the technical assistance protocol I mentioned earlier. It is the same for high school. This new resource that we just released, we're releasing it right now to you all, you are the first to know, is our at-a-glance document. So one thing we got a lot of feedback on last year was district test coordinators didn't have time to search through every grade and every contents assessment guide to find answers. They wanted just a snapshot of the most important things that they want to know. And so we've developed these at-a-glance documents. So there's two versions. One is by content area, so you'll have a separate sheet for ELA, a separate math, a separate social studies, a separate science. It has everything for every grade you need to know. But there's also a version if you want it by grade band. You can do that as well. It's the same information. It's just structured two different ways depending on what you need. So this is a great resource, little cheat sheet for you all that we're excited to release. Also, we have those parent guides that I mentioned to you earlier. There's a parent guide for the actual test, and then there's a parent guide for the practice test. These parent guides can be used in different ways. Family night, sending it home with results, sending it home in a newsletter to have parents know, using it in conferences. There's a bunch of different things. But it's really a great way for parents to know which tests the kids are taking, when they're going to take it, what resources they can use as parents. And those are available in our parent assessment portal. Also, again, these next slides are not new, but these are all of the resources for our practice tests on one page. So we have do's and don'ts that are located in our practice test guidance document, which is in our practice test library. It basically walks you through how to use the practice test and how not to use it. It's really helpful if you are thinking about administering this. I'll tell you, we basically have two ways districts do this. One, they do it as a simulation of the test, so they actually give the whole test, they time it just like they would normally do. Then we have districts that purely use this as an instructional tool. At the beginning of the year, they take those practice tests and they tear them up and put this set of items with this lesson in October. I'm going to use this passage with these questions when I do this unit in December. And they plan it out with those items so that they are using quality aligned items that match the rigor of the expectations of the standards. So they use it for instruction. So there's really two big ways, but there are guidance do's and don'ts and things in this document. There's also in the assessment guidance library, all of the assessment guides, every grade, every content has one. There's also webinars if you need to review those with any of your teachers or your leadership teams. There's technology enhanced item types. It's a one-pager on what the different items are. There's also our accessibility and accommodations manual is actually being updated right now. So last year we had two, one for high school and one for 3 to 8. We're combining them into one now since our assessments are this like seamless flow from 3 to high school now. So it's in one document. These are some of the resources for Elite 2025. There are, again, assessment guides, high school assessment webinars, practice tests, there's practice test guidance, webinars, social studies assessment framework, the answer keys for practice tests, the guide to the online equation builder, the social studies extended response checklist, ELA rubric, and as I mentioned earlier, the OTT, the online tools training. So this is just really a comprehensive list in these couple of slides for these resources. A reminder about the OTT. For science, there is a separate science online tools training for 3 to 8 in biology, and it shows you the items that will be used on the science field test. Again, you can access this through Insight or using the link here. There's also tutorials in eDirect. So if you go to general information and then tutorials, it will give you those little snapshots 10-second, 20-second clips of how to use each tool. Now for ACT and WorkKeys, I know this does not apply to probably 90% of you all, but I wanted to make sure you had it in case you needed it. Our ACT testing is next week. For those of you that this applies to, this is a list of all of the resources that you'll need along with the customer service information. If you are a school doing ACT online, these are the documents that you need. The next slides go through the schedule of events through the end of the year. So the most important things to know now is ACT is next week. You need to make sure you review those documents. The manuals for administration have been released. You want to make sure your tech coordinator is making sure your computers you're using for ACT online are all configured and they're set up correctly. But again, I would go through these dates just to make sure you're on track. Again, none of this is new. This is just another place for you to reference this information. For those of you who had students taking the English language proficiency test, keep in mind the window closes Friday. If for some reason you need an emergency additional order, that last day is Thursday for it to arrive on Friday. If you have students that took a large print or braille version of this test, those answers need to be entered in the data entry interface, the DEI, and there's a guide for you if you need help. Remember, those oaths need to be completed, any irregularities need to be turned in, any voids, anything you need, please let us know. And you can also contact AIR as well. Remember, accountability coding happens at the end, so that means you are putting in a number that represents why a student didn't test. So that is why we need to make sure every kid is accountable and ensure that that is located in the system. So if the kid dropped, if the kid transferred, there's different codes for that. And so these next slides just review how to do that. Now for ELPT, if this applies to you, you have to schedule to pick up with FedEx based on when you're finished. So for every other assessment, we've scheduled it for you. For ELPT, you can send it whenever you're done. So you need to coordinate that with UPS. And again, all the directions for how to return materials are located here. For Leap Connect and Law 1, that also ends this Friday. If you have voids, testing irregularities, same thing. They need to be sent to assessment at la.gov. The oaths still need to be completed for this assessment as well. If you have any questions, you can contact the phone number here or the email. And again, you'll accountability code students at the end of the window if that applies to you. The directions for returning materials are also located here. Please follow those to make sure all of your materials get back on time. For LEAP 360, just one thing to note, we changed the filter for the drop-down to basically show more organized categories of reports. We had a need for this, and so this is something that I wanted to show you because this change will happen this week. So basically the drop-down box for reports will have the test session summaries and the test session response maps that are listed by subject and grade band. Also for LEAP 360, as a reminder, the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding for 2018-19 is out and is due on July 7th. This will be a document that you and your superintendent will sign, basically accepting the same terms as this year, which means it's at no cost to use for next school year. You will send that MOU to assessment at la.gov, and we'll get you straight in the system for 18-19. Some improvements for 2018-19, we categorize these in 5 groups based on the thousands of pieces of feedback we got about all the things people liked and all the things that they wanted improved for upcoming years. And those 5 priority areas are data management, educator scoring, reporting, content, and EAGLE. And if you attended the supervisor collaboration today or you're coming tomorrow or next week, I'll be doing a session on this if you'd like to join. As a reminder, if you are a new district test coordinator, a new backup district test coordinator, a new accountability contact, or a new backup accountability contact, or you have a new secure shipping address or email, anything that has changed as far as contact information, please submit this form. We want to make sure we have the right people and the right information in our system as the person of contact for all things assessment for your LEA. And again, our weekly newsletters, weekly calls, our monthly calls, our assessment and accountability library, our email and phone number, all of those things are available to you to provide resources and support. Please use those as much as possible. Also, as a reminder, our customer server contact sheet is in the assessment library, and this lists all of our customer service phone numbers and emails for any assessment. So ACTs is on there, ours is on there, for ELPT, early childhood stuff, CLEP, AP, all of that is located on this page. So it's just a one-pager you could frame and put in your office. Also, the Teacher Leader Summit, as always, is at the end of May, and we are super excited to have you all there. This is our main conference that we have once a year in New Orleans, where we have tons of sessions to provide training and professional development on. I will be doing a LEAP 360 session every time slot, so if you are interested in coming to those, I would love to see you. Those will be based on our improvements for next year and just an overview of LEAP 360 for those of you who may be new to it. So you want to be thinking about who you might want to send to that event, and the information was linked in that slide as far as the overview of the types of sessions that will be there. So our last slide, just to wrap it up, are some next steps for you all. Our next monthly call will be April 17th, same link, same call-in, but keep in mind every Tuesday in between we'll still have our weekly call at 1 o'clock here where you can call and ask questions. I know we are over time, but I want to go to a couple questions I saw in the Q&A. If you need to leave, feel free to jump off. If not, stay on to hear the answers to these questions. But thank you so much for joining. If you need a copy of this PowerPoint, it is in the assessment library and at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Y'all have a wonderful day. We have a question about TDR students and the payment. So your sponsor and probably superintendent or whoever is leading the school or the LEA are probably in close connection about the assessment payment. So they are paying for your students on tuition donation rebate. The order form has a spot for you to put who that is so that they will be invoiced. So that will go directly to them. We have a question about ACT. So the score that's the highest for your student will be used in the ACT index for school performance. So if your students take the test multiple times, we will take the highest score. Also in April, there is the last national ACT testing date. So if your students are taking ACT on a national testing date, besides the one at school, April is the last date time for them to do that. We have a question about the 3rd and 4th grade testing window. So that is the first week in May. It's April 30th through May 4th. And the times and the schedule are in those assessment guides, but they're also in the manual. So it'll tell you what to take on day 1, day 2, day 3, etc. All right, I think I answered all of the questions in here. But if you have any more, please feel free to call or email. We want to make sure that y'all are ready to roll for testing. So just as a quick reminder, ACT is next week. Leap Connect and Law 1 and ELPT and Friday. And then grades 3 to 8 assessments start on April 9th. And then the 23rd is when our high school starts. So again, thanks for joining. Y'all have a great day.
This has been a presentation of the Louisiana Department of Education, copyright 2018, all rights reserved. For more information or to contact the Louisiana Department of Education, on the web go to www.louisianabelieves.com or call 1-877-453-2721.